Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Positivity Podcast on Anfield Index. My name is Matt McElroy, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. I am joined by Lubo Morkov and Paul Jenkins. How are you doing today, Lubo?
I'm good. I'm watching the NFL Red Zone, which is a little bit of a Sunday afternoon tradition for me. Last 2-3 weeks, much to the chagrin of my wife. But otherwise, I'm all good.
Yeah, I'm following along as well, hoping for the right results. Paul, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing very well. As a few people will probably notice, my voice is a wee bit weak, just from being away at Anfield last night. So I'm doing a bit of shouting and singing. But I'm doing good. Like yourselves, I'm also watching the NFL, but I'm on the Patriots game and hoping that we will have a good result this afternoon.
Right. So, Paul, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your experience at Anfield? Because I know you also went to the Southampton game just before the World Cup.
Yeah, so the Southampton game, I took the two boys over, my two sons over for that game. So Eli, he's been over a few times. He's the eldest one. And then Noah, he's 7. So that was his first game there. And we were kind of sitting in the family seating area. The Anfield Road end, just behind the net. It was perfect view, perfect seats to see the absolute chaos and wonder that is Darwin Núñez. And on that day, I think he scored 2 crackers and was involved in a whole heap of stuff. It was a really good experience, and the boys loved it. Noah, especially for his first time there. I don't think he could have probably got a better first game or a result from a better first game to have been at. So he was pretty pleased with that. I know second half in that game actually was quite a weird because we were also then behind Ali for the saves in the second half. That kind of weirdly kept us in that game, if you want to say it that way. But we saw that out and got the 3-1 victory. It was quite a funny trip because while I had registered to get Noah and Eli tickets for the match, I forgot to get Michelle, my wife, registered in time. not expecting to win in the ballot, and then I managed to actually get tickets in the ballot. And I was like, oh no. And I had to break the news to her that I'd got tickets for the two boys, but I forgot to get a ticket for her. But she tagged along, came over to Liverpool with us, and we spent a couple of days there. So it was an enjoyable experience. And then, as I say, last night I was over for the Wolves game, and only got my ticket last week. Booked a flight and flew over on Friday night and back home this morning. Not a whole lot of sleep, and had a good day in Liverpool yesterday. And then the match last night, I have to say the atmosphere before the game was cracking. I was in the Cop last night, so the atmosphere was excellent. Everyone seemed pretty upbeat, pretty positive about the game before it. And for the first 15 minutes, you were just going, yeah, like we're going to score 1-2 here, settle down, and this will be a pretty run-of-the-mill, straightforward victory. And then we have moments of madness where you're like, oh, goodness. This Liverpool that we've needed to eliminate this season, that we just can't seem to get away from, where individual errors just costing us, silly mistakes, going 1-0 behind in a game, and you're like, oh my goodness. And you just at times you just feel the tension and the atmosphere changes from one of, yeah, this is going to be a cruise to victory to oh no, not this again. But one thing I have to say that sometimes you don't pick up too well on the TV is that like within seconds the cops just singing again and just getting going again behind the team, and constantly trying to keep keep spirits high and keep everyone kind of pushing for us to score. So even when we got the goal before we got the equaliser, and that honestly, see that ball from Trent through the Darwin. My goodness, that was a ball and a half. We were just directly behind that, so just to see that play was brilliant. And then Salah's goal again, like he was just and hit it as if he's hitting it directly towards us. So it was a perfect view of that goal as well. And you're kind of thinking, and like my mate turned to me and he was like, "This is it now. We're going to go on and win this 3-4-5-1. There won't be a problem here." And it's just like, why can't we eliminate these silly mistakes that we make? And obviously then concede the second, and then the third goal. The atmosphere in the stadium around the third goal was just utter disbelief, but also what's happening here. VAR in the stadium is just a really weird experience, especially at Anfield because there's no screens. So you don't have a clue what really is being checked and what's going on. You're just standing there waiting. And the Wolves fan were cheering because they had thought that it had been given on VAR, and then all of a sudden it switched to no goal. And it was like, happy days. We've got away with one here. But after the game was quite subdued. It wasn't it wasn't a toxic atmosphere by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's just more one of people going, that sums up our season. It's just been bleh. It's just like, this is Liverpool in 2022-23. We shoot ourselves in the foot. We come back, and then we just, for some reason, seem to like just lose our way again. See a game out with a 1-goal win, or we cough up, concede goals, and throw away games from winning positions. So yeah, it was kind of like walking out of Anfield. It didn't feel like we'd lost the game. It wasn't one of those ones where it's like, oh, it feels like it's fate. It was just more like that's just us all over this season. Can we not eliminate this and just kind of get on with it? And like some of the ones that I was with and was chatting to afterwards, they were like, "Oh, this is a disaster. This is the worst Liverpool team I've seen in years." And you're kind of going, "Okay, you need to settle yourself. We haven't lost this. We're still in the FA Cup. Ultimately, we Wolves in Wolves, so it's not a problem. But it's just one of those ones where we walked away. We went to the Arkle afterwards, went to one of the pubs afterwards, and it was just kind of like everyone was there, but there was no kind of buzz. But at the same time, it wasn't like everyone was depressed either. It was just like we're getting a drink and having a chat, and that was it.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird game, but I think you are Darwin Nunez's good luck charm. So we need to make sure we get you booked on a lot of plane trips over to Liverpool for the remainder of the season, so he can keep scoring.
I'm looking for sponsorship if anyone wants to do that. Like, I'm not going to argue if someone wants to get me tickets to make sure that I keep going to Anfield. I'm completely up for that. That's grand.
Yeah, and we can keep Darwin scoring.
Not just Darwin. I think Paul, you need to start traveling everywhere. You need to make it to every single game the rest of the season.
Make sure it gets a few too.
Yeah, it's actually funny what you said about individual mistakes, because I actually ended up going to the 11th Street Bar yesterday, which is the Liverpool Supporters Club sort of official bar in Manhattan yesterday. It's for Justin's birthday. Justin Wells, Happy birthday if you're listening.
Happy birthday, Justin.
So I got there and we're watching, and it was actually a packed bar. Tons of people. Everyone was really excited when the game started. And as you said, like at the beginning, it was actually a pretty, we were okay. We're not great, but we were okay controlling the tempo. And I was talking to Justin and a couple of others, and I thought, listen, it's just we've been shooting ourselves in the foot. A lot of individual mistakes. A lot of the goals that we've been allowing, the first goals, have been just dumb plays, and it's not even physical. It's just more mental. and you're wondering why it's happening. And as we're speaking, I'm just looking up, and Thiago is trying to dribble out from the penalty box and loses the ball, and then slide tackles to get it back. And then I have no idea what Alisson is doing. Whether he I think he didn't realize that what's his name was there, Guedes, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And then at the last moment, he realized was there as he was making the pass, and he panicked. And it's how, I don't know. It's not. You can say maybe physically, are they exhausted physically? Is it structure? Is it tactics? And then you're like, these are just experienced professionals who are just making stupid mistakes. And it's a lot of it is just mental. And it's that the first goal was exactly that. And I think that really set them up. And then that really gave a lot of confidence to Wolves to just come in and push and press. And I think that it's, I don't know. And even for the second goal, similar with we get the ball, we have a lot of players around the ball, and then Ibu just decides to just randomly just kick it right to a Wolves player, and now you're in the negative transition, and the whole sort of right side of the field is wide open. And even then, it was a little bit unlucky because Ibu actually did make a nice sliding tackle. He just came off the Wolves defender and then kind of scored it between Ali's legs. So I don't know. It's just those individual mistakes that everybody seems to be making them. Young players and old players, and I don't know. I don't know what's needed. I think everybody just needs to calm down, but obviously a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, calm down, concentrate a little harder, stuff like that. And it's easier to just say, well, do this thing but then somebody actually has to go out and do it. And I think that's the difficult part, the execution.
Yeah, and I think part of it is you don't know. I mean, I think they know they're not playing well, right? They know that they see people are making individual mistakes. They get frustrated with each other. And I think that just then leads me, there's just less confidence in each other, less confidence in the team, and then maybe everybody's trying to do a lot of things individually rather than just trusting your teammates. Instead of making a pass, you're trying to dribble. Instead of, I don't know, just calming down, you're trying to rush plays, and then it just snowballs.
I think also one of the things that seems to have disappeared is confidence in making those quick passes. And making taking a one touch and then laying the ball off. It seems now as if it's that old thing of, I don't want to make a mistake, so I'll take an extra touch. But in the moment of taking the extra touch, you actually leave yourself open to making a bigger mistake because play slowed down. It's with Ali for that first goal, kind of like if he had just got the ball and played the pass, we probably would have been fine. But he got the ball, hesitated. Then tried to
I think it is a lot of it is just
away.
And I know that sometimes I tend to poo-poo confidence or lack of confidence because these are obviously players who are top professionals, and you don't make it to this level if you don't have confidence in yourself. But it does feel like there's maybe a little bit just more lack of just conviction, lack of confidence, or lack of trust
trust in each other, sort of thing.
Trust in each other,
It's the split second thing. It just seems to be that everything's a wee split second slower than what we're used to doing things, and just as a result of that, it just feels that there is that small change in confidence in each other. It'll come back, but we're just in a moment where everything seems a bit slow and frustrating.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch, and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Yeah, and and we're probably just blowing up the agenda. But in many ways, this reminded me a little bit of exactly a year ago when we had the game in the EFL Cup, the semifinal against Arsenal, and we hadn't been playing well in that period, and it was a tough slog. And then we had that COVID break,
Yes,
and then we played Arsenal at home, and it was just kind of an ugly game, like an ugly nothing game. And it finished 0-0, and there was a lot of frustration, and Taki missed a goal at the end. And so I think a lot of people just gave up. I mean, it was like, oh, now we have to go to Arsenal, and we'll probably lose, and we'll be out. And then somehow we went to Arsenal and won 2-0 with those two Diogo goals. And it just kept grinding out results. I mean, some of those wins in last January and February in the league were just ugly. Obviously, you didn't have Mo. You didn't have Sadio, you didn't have Naby because they were at AFCON. So it was kind of a scratch team for a period of time. And a lot of the wins were just really painful. But they just kept somehow grinding them out. So we'll see if this is something that can happen again this year. It would be nice. But there's quite a bit of, I don't know, soul searching. Maybe they just don't need a tactics on the tactics training, I guess it is. They just need a shrink for a couple of days.
Or maybe a little bit of rest. There's a little bit of rest.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good point to get back on the agenda and go to the opening question. So, Lubo, we'll go to you first for the opening question. What would you prefer from a single season campaign? To make it to the Champions League final and lose, or to make it to the Europa League final and win?
So, it is. I've had debates. We've had some debates on Anfield Index Discord about this. And I think that you could see the pros and cons of both. So obviously being in the Champions League and making it to the final, you make a lot of money, right? You're probably over 100 million, probably financially. So that is very, very beneficial to the team. But then if you don't win the trophy, it's actually quite a big gut punch, right? And you wonder, there have been some suggestions how much of the slow start this season could be attributed to the team who went so hard and played 63 games and then at the end fell 1 point short in the title, and then going to the Champions League final in Paris, everything that happened there, and actually playing better than Real Madrid, I thought, and losing it, right? And just losing like that back to back. How difficult it is, right? To make it all the way. And, obviously the money is important to the club, but, is it really, maybe the players get some bonuses for Champions League, but they really want to win it, right? Versus the Europa League, which is, you will make less money. I mean, if you win, I was reading somewhere now, if you were to win the Europa League final, you probably make around 50 million. So about half, a little less than half of what you would get for making it to the Champions League final. So financially, it's not as lucrative. But I do think that it's for the team, for the players, and also for fans, it's still a big trophy. I know, some people disagree and think that the only two big trophies are the league and the Champions League. But I think Europa League is a big trophy, and I think winning it is actually a big boost. Not to also mention that it basically guarantees you Champions League next season, regardless of where you finish in the league, So I tend to be more of and I've kind of changed over the years. I used to be, I don't care about the little cups. I only care about the Champions League because of the money. But I do think that winning a trophy like the Europa League trophy, even if it's less financially beneficial to the club, is, I think, just mentally, emotionally for the players, and just as a boost of confidence and what gives you the season after that. I would rather have that.
Yeah, I think that, like you're saying, if it's on the wall of champions there that Liverpool keeps, then it's a big trophy, and they should try to win those trophies. And I think I'm kind of like you, where maybe in the past I would have chosen to have a deeper Champions League run and then lose the final versus winning the Europa League. But we've done that twice now in the last 5 years or so, and losing just hurts too much. And I don't want to have that happen again. I don't want that punch to the gut, like you're saying. So I think for me, at this point in time, I would prefer to win the Europa League. So, Paul, what are your thoughts?
I basically agree with what you guys are saying. I still think that winning trophies is ultimately what you're in football to do. And, you know, in the two scenarios, the one where you end up with a trophy feels better than the one where you do where you go all the distance and end up nothing at the end of it. And like as you just said, we've lost to Real Madrid twice in the final now. It's not fun, and it's not one of them ones where you look back and go, well, wasn't it awesome that we got to the final? You end up walking away from it going, we played better than Real Madrid in the most recent final and still lost. It's a pretty big kick in the teeth. Whereas if you were to get to the Europa League final and come away with a trophy, then that feels better. It not be as prestigious a competition. But whenever we won the Carling Cup, or what is it, the League Cup last season, Carabao Cup, it hasn't been called the Carling Cup in ages. And whenever we won the Carabao Cup last season, there was still a feeling around the club that it was good to have got silverware. Even if it is the lesser of the domestic titles, the domestic cups, it was still good to have won it. So I would say Europa, if you win it, it's a positive effect around the club to have won it.
Yeah, it's exciting to win things, and it just makes everybody feel better and sort of like propels you on to more things and makes you want to keep going in a way that like losing just makes you like self-reflective about the loss. And so like you end up dwelling on that a little bit more, and you could see probably what's happening this season a little bit is sort of that hangover effect from the loss in the Champions League final.
I think so. And even though we missed out on the league, I mean, I think that for a week back to back, losing the league by a point, and then especially when City were down 2-0, right? I mean, I was at Anfield for that game against Wolves, and just the excitement when we knew that Aston Villa were up 2-0, even though we're drawing, we felt like we could win. I mean, when Mo Salah scored that goal, I had no idea that Man City had come back, but just the stadium exploded. But I think I again, just we'll never know, but how different things could have been if Liverpool had at least won the Champions League last year, and to come in with 3 trophies and confidence and knowing, okay, we've done it, just we can go again, rather than just losing the 2 big ones and then thinking, okay, do we have the energy to go again? What is it going to take to get over that hump? It is losing these big finals. It is very difficult.
Yeah, and then for a number of players, they're also looking at it like the World Cup is in 3 months. And so, there's another big mental challenge ahead on the horizon. So a lot of that stuff can just weigh on your mind. So that's probably a good point for us to look back at what's happened since we spoke to you last. So to recap, Liverpool currently sits 6th in the Premier League on 28 points after 17 games. They're 7 points behind Newcastle and Manchester United, but have a game in hand on Newcastle United. In the Champions League, Liverpool won their final 5 games of the group stage to qualify for the knockout rounds. They were drawn against Real Madrid and will play them at the end of February. In the domestic cups, Liverpool were knocked out of the League Cup by Manchester City in the first game back after the World Cup, and drew 2-2 yesterday against Wolves, as we talked about in the FA Cup. Off the field, Liverpool opened the January transfer window with the signing of Cody Gakpo from PSV Eindhoven for £38 million. So now our first question coming back is, we all picked Liverpool to win the league at the beginning of the season. So I was wondering, what do you guys think the primary reason for Liverpool's struggles have been? So Paul, do you want to take a shot at that one?
And sometimes you look at it and you go, well, it's hard to narrow this down to one primary reason. I guess looking at it from where we are now, the obvious thing feels to be how things won in the midfield. That just seems to be one of the major issues that we're having. It feels that weirdly last summer we put all our eggs in the basket for Tchouaméni, and thought that would be the ideal purchase to kind of make the progression in the midfield. And when that didn't happen, there didn't seem to be any other option. And I guess maybe the decision was made that this squad and this midfield and this group of players would be able to continue for one more year, and still be able to eke out the results and get the results that we would need. And
hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I guess I was a big proponent of this idea. Well, the midfield have played, a relative great amount of games over the last couple of seasons and have done us superbly well. So I didn't see any real issue as to why that would be cause for concern. I think what has hindered us is just these small niggling injuries. You think of Jones not being available for a number of games. Obviously, Naby Keita not available. When we did bring in Arthur on loan, then he's getting injured. So, and even the reason we brought him in was because Hendo got injured and was out for a couple of weeks. It's just all these wee small things that you kind of look at and go, if that hadn't happened, the midfield probably would have been grand, and we probably would have been able to get better results than what we have got this season. But because those things have all happened, there's been such a knock-on effect that has affected us both in defence and then in attack, and it's affected our press, and it's affected how do we defend it, and then all of that clinched together, brought together, kind of then affects just overall approach to games and confidence in each other and confidence in how we play. So I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, what's the primary reason for the struggles? It just feels like it's like the sum of the parts. It's just all those wee small things that have come together, and it's just left us in a place where it looks as if we've heard so many times from different commentaries and different podcasts and different people who are writing articles about us that it's glaringly obvious that there's a major rebuild need, and there's a major this, that, and the other that's needed to help Liverpool progress. They need 6 signings, they need 7 signings, they need to rebuild here, there, and everywhere. I'm less of the view that we need massive amounts of change, but we just need a couple of things to go back in our favour, and this transfer window, obviously we brought in Gakpo. You're kind of looking at it going, if we could bring in a midfielder who, ideally a starter midfielder, but if not that, someone who's like your number 4, number 5 midfielder who's able to kind of come in and play, that should then be okay to see us through to the end of the season and do more work in the summer. But I don't know. I don't think this is massive as what some people are trying to say. But I don't want to be reductionist either and go everything's a field of roses and we're going to be grand, because it's quite clearly not that. But I do think if we were to address some of the issues in midfield, we would see things turn around pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that I'm kind of the same mind where it's not like just a single thing, but like a whole bunch of things all pointed in the same direction, right? Yeah. So like Liverpool have had a lot of injuries. So that means that people have been out for long stretches of time. And like that is a primary like factor, right? And then when you combine that with certain things of fatigue, right? You could tell they're just tired. They're not doing the like energy output at a consistent level. Like we would see in the fall, like the Champions League, the team would run like 120 kilometers in the midweek game and then follow it up in the Premier League game at like 108 kilometers as a team. So like that's a big 10% drop of energy output. And like that's going to have a huge effect on the outcome of the game, is whether or not you can like sustain that push for the whole 90 minutes. And then to go along with that, it's like they've assessed like, okay, we have all these older midfielders. They've done very well for us for the last several seasons. It's been good enough to get us to this point. We can do one more and then bring in more players. But it's like the assessment of where those players are on their, sort of aging decline in terms of being able to do performance was like further down the road than they thought. Like, I don't think that you would have looked at the beginning of the season and thought like James Milner is this far gone. And like, it just seems like he does not have the legs to contribute at the level needed for a team that's trying to push for, top four of the Premier League, or to go for a title, or to push into deep Champions League runs. And then it's sort of the same thing for Jordan Henderson, where it's like 1 week he'll have a good game and then 1 week he'll look like he just is lost. And so like that sort of thing makes it very difficult to put in like get that consistent results. So Lubo, what do you think on this topic?
So obviously, as you've touched, it's multiple reasons, right? So one is what we discussed earlier, is the team had played tons of games last year and then got to a Champions League, lost the league on the last day by a point, lost the Champions League final. And so some of it is just a question of just how do you reset? How do you reset just your body? How do you reset your minds? How do you go again, right? What is your motivation? Especially you have to remember that they have won. They have won the league. They have won the Champions League, right? So you could say, okay, now you have to go again and you have to go again. And sometimes it's difficult to motivate yourself mentally, physically, to go again. I think the second one is, as you've discussed, is the midfield. And there definitely was, in retrospect, a miscalculation, right? But I think you also have to say, you had a midfield, especially in the second half of last season, whether with this company that they're Zone 7 or Zone 9 or whatever, I think it's Zone 7, where they seem to have the midfielders operating in a nice rhythm, rotation. Naby Keita was available, Curtis Jones was available. The players were available, midfielders were available, were playing well, the team was performing, and you could say, okay, well, maybe there was some thinking that, we kind of have a handle on how to manage these midfielders in a busy season. We have enough bodies. We have, 8, 9 midfielders. We can kind of make it for another season while we're rebuilding the attack. And I think that rebuilding the attack, it seemed like that was the focus last season.
Yeah.
A lot of players were bought, right? I mean, Diaz came in January, then Nunes came, now Gakpo came, Carvalho came. You lost not just who came, but you also lost Sadio, you lost Divi, you lost Taki. And it seemed like the focus, maybe the plan, and I don't know, I mean, no one has shared the plans with me, but it feels like the plan was, let's rebuild the attack this season. We kind of have enough midfielders. We seem to know how to manage them, even they're a little bit older. We'll just rotate them more. We have the numbers. Let's wait until, Jude Bellingham becomes available and all these other players become available the season after that, and then rebuild the midfield. Let's focus on the attack this year. And I think that obviously with all the injuries to the midfielders, that kind of blew up. But also, all the injuries in the attack. I mean, you have all these issues that you've missed Diaz, you've missed Diogo, Bob is unavailable as well. And so I think that is also what's meant, is that, you're trying to rebuild the attack, but it's not really effective, not in the attacking sense, but in the defending sense. And that's then in combination with your midfield use. And even defensively, I mean, Virgil has not looked great. I mean, Joel has had his ups and downs. In combination, Robo has had some, stinky games too. All of that has meant that you're kind of not fully on the same, I don't know, page as everybody was last year. And we're just seeing the combination of that. And that's why it's so difficult to address at once and just fix it immediately. It's just going to take time.
Right. And so just to look at the like defenders for a minute, like Ibrahima Konate basically missed the entire part of the season before the World Cup. He only has 5 starts all season, and most of them have been in the last couple, or like 2 or 3 of them in the last couple games. Joel Matip has only got 10 starts out of 26 games, so it's like the defenders have been out, and then Virgil's been less than his best self, and I think that those things are also like what we were talking about with individual mistakes earlier. Like that's contributing to that, having those mistakes, not having the consistency there in the back, that's making it a lot easier for teams to score on Liverpool. And for the most part, like Alisson has been like the saving grace because he's been bailing them out so much.
But you could even say with Alisson, maybe the mistake yesterday was the fact that partly the fact that he's been under so much pressure to make these saves, and he's been relied on so much to just play out from the back in the way we're trying to do it in a structure that's not optimal. And so he's having to do all of these risky passes and find teammates under pressure. And, as great as he's been, once in a while, you're going to have a mental mistake. And I think he just having to rely on Alisson all season has also meant that he's been just super stressed out, right? And so it's not surprising that, even he, as God as he is as a goalkeeper, he's still human, and once in a while he'll make a mistake.
Yeah, he's been carrying the team, and you can see where you can have a crack every once in a while, and that's probably what happened yesterday afternoon. So I think this is a good point to start looking at these games since coming back from the World Cup. And are there any elements from these matches that has you feeling good about what's to come in the season? Lubo, do you want to talk about that one for us?
I mean, I think the attack, even though we've had injuries, as we mentioned, to Diaz and to Jota and even Bobby, he's been out as well. We're creating chances, and some of it is less process, I would say, and more chaos. And I think just up front, Darwin and Mo, they have been kind of chaos agents. And then you have, enough support from especially the fullbacks where we're creating the big chances. I think the problem has been just conversion, right? Both, Darwin and Mo lead the league in big chances missed. But at least I think that in terms of attack and creating chances and scoring chances, I think that is working, right? And hopefully now you have Gakpo, or as they say it apparently in Dutch, Hakpo. He also comes in, and even though yesterday he had a bit of a subdued game, which is what you'd expect, he also, from all the videos that I've seen, he can be a bit of a creative, but also chaos machine. So I think the attack will continue to perform. I think we'll be able to continue to score goals. It's just more around the can we do enough to balance the team, and then just, I don't know. I'm not even saying keep enough clean sheets at this point of time, but just maybe limit the damage to 1 goal allowed per game, so where we can actually start putting together a string of wins.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Liverpool kept a clean sheet. So yes, for me, I think that Darwin as actually the big positive element since coming back. Not that he struggled to convert the goals, but he's getting in the right places. He's taking lots of shots. He just needs to start scoring, because once he starts scoring, I think that could carry Liverpool a long way through the season and just getting the results that are needed. 6 shots a 90 is a phenomenal number. So Paul, what do you think has been going well since the restart?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. The attack is something that we can be chance creation is something that we can be positive about and be encouraged about. Um, I also think, as a wee minor aside, I think,
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mag boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
bringing in Ben Doak for a number of games is also, and Bisetic, the actual betting in of some of these younger players is also something that we can look at and go, well, they've come into the games and they've acquitted themselves really well when they've got themselves involved in games. So I think that's like a wee aside. It's not so much like results driven positivity, but it is a positive story that these younger players are able to come in and get some minutes and get some game time and look as if they're settled enough and okay enough in the team to be able to play. We've seen Bisetic. What game was that he scored in?
Aston Villa.
Aston Villa, yeah, the first Premier League game.
First game back, he took his goal and scored for a midfielder who isn't even renowned for his goal scoring ability in youth football. To be able to do that in the Premier League and come in and perform at that level, I think that's something as well that we can be positive about. So that for me is like one of the wee small asides that we can be happy about.
Yeah,
I'll say just to add to that, I think the other thing is we are getting some players back. And it doesn't quite feel like it because obviously Diogo is still out and Luis is still out, and then we lost Virgil in the last Premier League game. So that has kind of sucked. But in terms of actually players available, we have now more midfielders. I saw Curtis Jones played for the under 21s. He did 45 minutes. So hopefully he's back. Naby's been back and actually he's looked good. And I think so I think that we're getting numbers in midfield. Now we have Gakpo as another option in attack. So at least we have bodies, right? Yeah. And I think that is another positive thing right now after the last 2 months of just injuries all over. Hopefully that means that now that Klopp can get them all into some sort of a rhythm and some sort of a rotation where they start feeling more confident and start delivering.
Yeah, and I think like you were saying, Paul, with Doak and Bisetic coming in, I think that's been a really, really nice development over the last couple of weeks, and both of those kids appear to be fearless.
Yeah, and Calvin Ramsey got 20 minutes today before he got sent off. So, there's someone who there's been rumours that he's been out injured, but by the looks of it, they were just keeping him for that game today. And I've seen that Klopp was down watching that game today as well. So, he's obviously interested in seeing how they're doing at that level, with eyes on how would they do when they step up. How's Curtis's performance there today? And I'm assuming he would been looking at Calvin Ramsey as well just to see how he'd done. Unfortunately, he got a red card. It seemed a pretty soft red card when I seen the highlight of it. I was like, oh, that's a bit harsh on him. But yeah,
well, it was last defender. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
In fact, you could You could even say that if he were not the last defender, if there was another player ahead, you could say that would be in a very soft yellow. But the fact that he was the last defender, and you almost have to give him the red card there.
Oh, totally. You get it in the scheme of the game, but you just looked at him and went, it was such a soft foul. Like it was, the boy went down and nearly breathed on him, fell over. So it's unfortunate.
So I think this is a good time to look at Liverpool's latest signing, Cody Gakpo. So what do you guys think of the signing? Lubo, do you want to get us started?
I mean, he's an attacker. First and foremost, he's an attacker, and we've needed attackers. I know that we've had Ox come in, and he's been okay, but ideally you want a real attacker in there, right? So that's one. I think two, just looking longer term, it does seem like that the plan may be to eventually have him and Diaz at left wing, Darwin and Diogo more centrally, and then you have Mo, and maybe now Doak is going to maybe get a little bit more time on that side. You still have Kate Gordon, so it does look like he's someone, not just an emergency signing, even though he'll hopefully help, but a part of the plan, right? Part of continuing to evolve this attack. And he is different, right? He's different from Luis. He's different from the attackers that we have. He's a I think there's a question of how well his stats from the Netherlands are going to translate to the Premier League. There's that. There's quite a bit of projection that needs to happen, that you need to believe in. There's the whole thing about Pep Linders and how much he was involved and should he have been involved. So there's a lot of these stories around him that I think make the narratives more difficult, but at the same time, the way I look at it is, he's a 23-year-old attacker who could hopefully be part of this new evolution, new attack with the rest of the younger players for the next 5 years. And from that perspective, I'm, as much as I have some questions about him, I view it as a positive.
Okay, so I have a little bit different take on this one than others. So this is probably the transfer I am most skeptical of that Liverpool have done in a long time. It's more like, if we just step back and not look at just the player, but the position that that Liverpool are buying for, right? If you asked me a month ago to do a needs assessment for where I would allocate resources towards, building the squad for this season and beyond, I think that left-sided attacker would have been pretty far down the list. And so I probably would have gone for, or at least tried for a midfielder or a center back or something like that to come in to immediately help the squad. And then when you transition to looking at Gakpo himself, like you said, is coming from the Eredivisie, there's a lot of questions about whether or not those output numbers are going to translate to the Premier League. And a lot of the players who have made that transition over the last 5-6 years have really struggled in the Premier League once they've come across. So that just makes me very hesitant to think that this is a good deal. But you're mentioning is there is a bit of an injury crisis right now. He can come in and get some minutes in the short term, learn the system, and that sort of thing. Now, if Liverpool are transitioning their plan away from a base system of a 4-3-3 to a 4-4-2 or 4-2-4, it makes more sense to buy another winger or another winger rather than midfielder, because you're going to need less central midfielders in a 4-4-2, and you will need wing players that Liverpool don't currently have on the roster. So maybe it's just that we don't know what the plan is, so then it's hard to judge. But if we're sticking with the 4-3-3, this is not a transfer that makes a whole lot of sense to me. So Paul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to be quite honest, it's one of those underwhelming transfers. if I can say that as respectfully as possible. It's not that he's a bad player. Obviously, he's very good. He performed to a decent level on the World Cup stage, and that's not an easy place to go and play either, to get goals and to provide assists. So he's obviously got talent. It's great to bring. I think the price point that you bring that he has arrived in at is a good price point for the kind of signing that we make for players who are maybe not that elite style of player, but maybe with good coaching that we know that we have, then that can push him on to a level or two above where he currently is at. It's one of them ones. I think it's a wait and see. As you said, Matt, we don't know what the transition of tactics and how the team will play over the next 1, 2, 3 seasons. We don't know if it is going to stay as a 4-3-3. Like even this season, we've seen that we've used that kind of box midfield. We've also seen that we've went for because we have Carvalho and we have Harvey Elliott and we have now Gakpo, and we have these different players who we would look at and go, don't necessarily drop into our 4-3-3 the way we have played 4-3 for the last number of seasons. So then the question is, what is the plan going forward? And I guess we won't ever see that until we have every player available and we have an out-and-out system that we can easily identify and go, that's how we want to play. Now, unfortunately, I think part of the problem this season is that we've tried to make tactical changes that have sometimes worked and sometimes haven't worked, and then players haven't become available. Players have got injured, and so we've had to switch again and switch up. We've went from 4-3-3 effectively starting the season to then moving to like a 4-4-2 in places, a 4-2-4 at times. We've also looked then at nearly a 4-2-3-1, the double pivot kind of idea. So you're just looking at him going, Gakpo, we don't know what essentially the plan is for Liverpool over the next couple of seasons. And I'm not one of these guys that's like, oh, as a supporter, I must know what our plan is for the future. I'm kind of more of the thought, well, if the coaching staff and the management know what they're going to do, that's fine. I'm happy to trust in that and see it through. Look at it just on the cold, hard light of day at the minute. You're just wondering, as you say, Matt, was left that kind of left forward, was that the position that we needed to go and buy someone for? Not necessarily, but at the same time, Diaz and Jota, both injured, both going to be out for a while. So you're just not sure if that then is going to be, you just look at it, it's probably a signing of opportunity that we have tracked a player. We maybe wouldn't have signed him in this window, but the opportunity arose to make the sign and we've went for it and done it.
Yeah. I think like what you're saying is true. Is like there's a lot of risk leveraged into the deal. Like the £38 million is like about what Liverpool want to pay for an attacker, but then with the like question marks around how players transition from the Eredivisie to the Premier League and certain things, like you load up a little bit more risk in there, and then that makes that transfer fee look a little high, and so then maybe that's the market rate, but then there's a lot of risk, and so then you're still stuck in this like limbo when you're doing the evaluation, where you're sort of leaning towards, well, I don't know about this one.
Yeah. But I think there are a couple of other things. One is that if you look at the price and the age, he more or less is kind of what we paid for Diogo, and also for Luis, around the same age. And similar profile of a player. So, yeah, like you said, that's around that 35-40 million sort of a guaranteed, or maybe a little bit higher than that. That's kind of what the Liverpool is willing to pay for this profile of player. But the other thing is also, and Klopp kind of hinted at that when he was talking about Gakpo, is that it does seem with Diaz and with Nunes and with Gakpo, there's a bit more of a, in the past, you could almost say with Bobby and Sadio and Mo, you had about 2 to 3 seasons of really excellent performance, and you could look at the data and you could say, yeah, they're ready, right? Mm-hmm. With the last 3 signings, the last 3 big signings, you kind of had more like a season or even half a season in some cases
where 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, where you've looked and you're like, okay, you think that that you can see in the data, you can see in the performances they're improving, but they haven't done it for a long enough time that you would want in the past that 2 to 3 seasons for you to be certain. So it does seem like that these are more risky signings, as in you have kind of what is the minimum amount of time for at that new level for you to be confident, but also it could be just a reaction or a reflection that the market is just super competitive now because you have so many more teams with money that are willing to go in and spend big on these players. And then it seems like if for some of these players that you're tracking, if it feels like if you feel that another team may come in for them and buy them before you're comfortable, you have a choice of either kind of taking a gamble but buying them, or just standing still and losing them to another team. And we had that with Diaz. I mean, Man United were after Nunes. I know Man United were also after Gakpo. So there is a bit more of a risk or a bit more of a gamble introduced in these recent signings, and that's why I think that there's kind of a higher margin of error would they work out. And this is where then the coaches, Klopp and Pep and the rest of them, they have to be really, really certain that they can work with these players and really get them to the next level because of that element of risk.
Yep. So it's a good time for us to start looking forward to the next month and then wrap things up. So are you guys expecting more signings from Liverpool in the January transfer window? Paul, do you want to start us off?
I don't know. Simple answer. I don't have a clue. I guess, everyone kind of talks about it. The big thing you want is a midfield signing, just to kind of ease the pressure on what we have. But as we've also said, there are bodies coming back. Naby's now featured in the last 4 games. He's featured in, so you're kind of going, right, well, there has to be a plan for him between now and the end of the season. Curtis Jones is back. Ox is playing some minutes. So you kind of look at that and go, well, if we don't make a signing, it'll annoy a lot of supporters. But at the same time, do we have enough bodies to see us through to the end of the season? Which was the question we said at the start of the season. Ultimately, is there enough to see us through? I don't know. I think it would be ideal to kind of bring in a midfielder. Aside from that, I don't really see us making any, a signing anywhere else or for any other position in the team. But I guess that remains to be seen. I suppose what also remains to be seen is if anyone comes in for an offer for any of our, other players. There's a bit of a rumor around Quavine, Crystal Palace maybe looking at him, or maybe some of the other Premier League teams coming in to look at him as a possible signing. And Nat Phillips obviously is someone who always gets rumoured as moving to Bournemouth generally. So you would probably make a reaction if that was to happen to either of those two positions. But aside from that, I think the only thing that we would probably really try to address is midfield.
Yeah, I would hope that there's a midfield signing. That seems like it would be the ideal situation, just because I'm not feeling super comfortable about the reliability of our guys and making sure that they're available for every single game in what's going to be a fairly jam-packed run to end the season. So getting another guy in that can perform at a high level and sort of relieve some of that burden on our aging players would be the optimal situation, I think. So, Lubo, your thoughts?
I mean, I would agree. I think that obviously midfield is the next big one. I don't think that there were some rumors that the Virgil injury would mean that we need to buy another center back. I don't see it. I think that if he's going to be out for a month or so, as long as the prognosis is that he'll be back by, let's say, early to mid-February and ahead of the Champions League games, I don't see Liverpool signing a center back. I think that what will mean is that Nat Phillips is not going anywhere. I don't know how much interest there would have been in Nat Phillips this winter anyhow, but it's pretty much now given that he will stay. And attack, we just addressed that with Gakpo. So obviously the midfield is the big one. And I think the challenging thing about midfield is obviously on the one hand, if you had a situation like Gakpo, like Diaz last year, where you've tracked a player for a long time and then he becomes available, then I can see the team acting in January, right? And I know that Caicedo is the one that has been linked a lot and rumored a lot, but also after him, and he will probably be extremely, extremely expensive because Brighton are no fools. So as much as I do like him, I know, Matt, you and I, we've kind of had banter back and forth around Caicedo. I do like him, but I think
he's a good player that you should like him.
I should like him, right? But I don't think he would qualify as the kind of a cheap, affordable midfielder that becomes available in January. And I think the other thing to consider also is that if you believe the Jude rumors, right? If you believe that Jude Bellingham is coming in the summer, could he be someone to become available in January? Really, really difficult to see. Same with Mateus Nunes, who I have to say looked pretty decent in 20 minutes yesterday at Anfield. As far as audition, he actually looked nice. He, silky smooth. I mean, there was one play where he just blew past Thiago, and Thiago just would. You could kind of say like, oh, you felt bad for Thiago, but Nunes just ran around him. So from that perspective, and there's a lot of rumors that he's someone that Liverpool would go after, but not in January, because even if he joined in January, he wouldn't be eligible to play for us. So now you say you have Jude and Nunes in the summers, and okay, well, who's the third player that you're going to bring in January? And maybe there's someone, maybe there's a kind of a more of a younger, cheaper player who could become available in January. Quite a few players have been linked. Maybe he's someone who could come in and maybe you wouldn't put tons of pressure on him, but he would be another pair of fresh legs. But then I think then the question is going to be then what type of a player that is and what are the expectations, because if it's more of a younger player with an upside, it's unlikely that Klopp would just push him in the big games. So then you're going to have to then hope that the midfielders that we have now, that they stay healthy, that Naby Keita can perform through the end of the season. Maybe now Ox will get more time in midfield. Curtis Jones, hopefully he comes back. So I do think that even if we buy a midfielder in January, unless it's someone like Jude Bellingham, right? And I don't think that's going to happen. Even if we bought a midfielder in January, it would be more of an insurance and more someone who maybe will play a little bit now, but really would be someone for the future.
Yep. Okay, so let's do one final question, and that's about the upcoming games. So Liverpool are playing Chelsea and Brighton in the Premier League, and then have the replay in the FA Cup with Wolves. So just thoughts or expectations around what we are going to see from Liverpool in those games. Paul, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I think honestly, the only thing that matters is getting a result. Isn't that what really at this point in time what we need? We need points on the board. Chelsea seem to be in an incredibly bad place right now. The rumours seem to be that Potter doesn't have long left, if he has much time left after today's defeat against City. So, you're looking at Chelsea going, you'd hope to pick up points in that game just because they're playing so terribly. Brighton, we know, are an incredibly well-organised team. They seem to have picked up straight after where Potter has left them at and have just pushed on. So that, it's not going to be an easy game against them. But ultimately, you just want to get points on the board. Would we like nice performances, good performances, a Liverpool-style performance that we've known for the last couple of seasons? Of course. But if it means grinding out, a 2-1 victory, I'll take that as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just I hope that we can see fewer defensive errors and just individual mistakes and cutting those things out. And then, a thing that we've seen in the last couple of games where they've struggled in defending corners and set pieces and getting back to the fundamentals and being able to defend those. I think if we can see improvements in those two areas, I will be very happy. So, Lubo, your thoughts? Do you think that the replay is a good thing for Liverpool?
I mean, it's an opportunity. I view the replay as an opportunity to give minutes to some of the players who've been out for a while. So obviously the league is the priority. So the Brighton game is the priority. The Chelsea game is the priority. I don't know how we play after that. I know there's a little bit of a break because of the FA Cup. But Wolves comes at a point where then if Bobby's back, if Curtis is back, it's an opportunity to give them minutes, and maybe you just do treat it as a cup game properly rather than starting your best 11. And so from that perspective, it could actually be good to have that game where you could play, right? You could give real minutes rather than training minutes to players who are coming back. At least there's not going to be another replay. You go to Wolves and you either win and then you have to deal with Brighton again, or you lose, right? So I view the Wolves replay. I'm less concerned about it just because I think it's actually a good opportunity for some of these players. But obviously the focus becomes the league. And so if we end up, somehow winning at Brighton and beating Chelsea and then losing to Wolves, I think I would have no problem with that. But, for all purposes, for all practical purposes, we could actually end up, advancing past Wolves. And, I'll be happy with that too. I don't mind, but I definitely feel the league would be priority for Klopp. And the FA Cup then would be his opportunity to engage and give minutes to some of the more squad players. So everybody kind of can be at least in some sort of a game rhythm once you enter into the February and then you come back to the Champions League.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I think we'll bring the episode to a close here and transition to some final thoughts and plugs. So Paul, your final thoughts?
Final thoughts is I just hope we can get wins. Do you know what I mean? I just hope we can get players back, keep players fit.
I'm with you there.
But I guess one of my final thoughts is this: there's still 21 games left in the league. We are further, although we're in January and we've played, the first game in the FA Cup. We haven't as many league games played in a season as what we normally have played. So there's cause for optimism that we still have over half the season left to go. Where normally at this stage we're over the halfway mark. So there is still plenty of points to play for, plenty of time to turn this around and get us to a point where top four is easily achievable. However, we need to start doing that soon. And we need to get some more points on the board quickly. What I also think is that Arsenal have to play City twice still. You've got Newcastle playing United. Chelsea have to play all these teams. We all still have to play each other. There's going to be a lot of points dropped between now and the end of the season. All is not lost. The season is not a write-off by any stretch of the imagination. There's a long way to go yet. We haven't even touched on Champions League. There's still a lot of football for Liverpool to play and a lot of tricks still out for us there to win. So there's no dramatic need for cause for concern right at this point in time.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's no reason to give up at this point in time just because, there's a lot of season to go, a lot of opportunities for Liverpool to get better, and a lot of opportunities to get some good results. So, Lubo, your final thoughts?
Hey, my final thoughts is just thinking back exactly a year ago. I think we're in a very similar situation as a team and as fans. The analogy that they made with the Arsenal in the EFL Cup and having to go there, and it was looking very bleak, especially because we're losing players to AFCON. There were a lot of question marks, and somehow the team was able to start stringing together wins, and a lot of those were very ugly wins in the league. The team didn't really start properly clicking, I would say, until like February and March, and then down the kind of the back end of the season was a powerhouse. So I'm just hopeful that we see the same thing. I mean, this is not Klopp's first rodeo. He's managed to in the past to have difficult spells and turn it around and figure out a shape and a process to get results. So I remain hopeful that, exactly as Paul said, we still have a lot of games to go. We're still technically in the 2 cup competitions, even though that we would have been better if had we beaten Wolves yesterday. And so there's a lot of football to be played, and we have players coming back, players available. So hopefully the combination of that means that we'll start seeing together results. And obviously, top 4 is the goal. But I'm hopeful that we'll make a really deep run in one of the 2 cups, and why not win it? I would love to win the Champions League, of course, despite the ghost of Real Madrid ahead of us. But honestly, even if it's the FA Cup, I don't mind. I think we have a deep cup run in us, and I'm hopeful that we'll end up finishing in top 4.
Yeah, there's a lot to play for, so let's go. So for as far as we are here on the Positivity Podcast and our schedule going forward, we ended up on hiatus at the end of 2022 because of events in my personal life, so I apologize for that. And I think our plan is to get back to our sort of normal scheduled service and be touching base and coming to you every 3 to 4 weeks. So we'll look forward to doing that with you over the coming months as Liverpool chase 3 competitions. So until we talk to you again, up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.